Why do people go back to the very thing they swore they were done with? Why do mature believers, people who've seen God move, people who know better, people who know better, they still get blindsided by an old fear and fall right back into an old compromise? And why does that feel so painfully familiar? Because most people aren't defeated by what they don't know. They're ambushed by what they haven't healed. Genesis 20. It isn't about a man who never learned anything. It's about a man who knew God. Knew God. Chosen by God, walked with God, heard God, trusted God, and still got pressed into the same old wound. And that, my friends, is real life. You can love God and still have old survival reflexes hiding in your nervous system. You can grow deeply and still have certain fears that know exactly where to find the old buttons. You can be years down the road and still feel yesterday trying to grab the wheel today. And in a world like ours, where fear is monetized, manipulated, marketed, and weaponized every single day, that matters more than ever. So, let me ask you, since we're being honest with each other, good morning, by the way. Have you ever caught yourself repeating a pattern? You thought, man, I really thought I'd gotten rid of that. I really thought God brought me out of it. I thought I was clear. I thought I was strong. I thought I was impervious, impenetrable. But then I wasn't. Then I wasn't. And after being so strong for so long, it all started to fall apart. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Shawn. And today we come to Genesis 20. This chapter sits in a striking place in the story. Remember what this is called. Through the Bible in a year, walking God's story. So this chapter, remember yesterday, Sodom has just fallen under judgment. Isaac is about to be born. The promise is close now. I can smell it. Close enough to touch. And if you were writing the story, you might think Abraham should be walking in rock-solid courage by now, but he isn't. He enters Gerar, and he gets afraid. And he says Sarah is his sister. Again. That one word matters. Again. Because this isn't some brand new stumble, this is an old one. And we've seen this before. Egypt already exposed this reflex. We've already watched fear pull the same lever. And that's exactly why the Bible tells it to us again. The Bible doesn't flatter its heroes. It doesn't airbrush its saints. It does not hand us polished propaganda and call it faith. It tells the truth. And thank God it does. Because if the Bible only showed spotless people, then broken people would assume there's no place for me in anywhere near the story of God. And Abraham says, there is no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. That is fear talking. Not fresh revelation, not covenant confidence, Fear. Fear has a voice. Fear speaks fast. It speaks urgently. Fear speaks, it sounds practical. Fear sounds prepared. Fear sounds responsible. Fear often calls itself wisdom while quietly pulling you away from trust. That's one of the reasons why fear is so dangerous. It almost never shows up and says, "Hello, I'm unbelief." No, it doesn't do that. It comes dressed like prudence, like realism, strategy, like self-protection. And in the ancient Near East, kinship, vulnerability, power, and household survival, they weren't imaginary concerns. This was a dangerous world. We forget about this. Things are new. Everything is new and wild and crazy. This was a dangerous world, and Abraham isn't inventing risk. He's not inventing risk out of thin air. The danger could be real. It could be real. He could even be underestimating the danger. For real. But real danger doesn't make unbelief holy, and that's where many people are living right now, you and me. The pressure is real, the bills are real, the pain is real, the threat feels real, the betrayal was real, the instability is real, tax day was real. And somewhere in the middle of all that pressure, fear starts authoring choices. It starts authoring choices that God never told you to make. And once fear gets the pen, old patterns come back fast. That's why Genesis 20 lands so hard on we modern people, because a lot of people are listening. A lot of people that are listening now, they are carrying old scripts. Old ways of staying safe. Old habits learned in pain. Old responses shaped by betrayals we've experienced. Rejection, instability, shame, insecurity. And when pressure rises, they don't always stop and choose carefully. Sometimes they revert automatically. Old avoidance, old people-pleasing, old exaggeration, old deception, old shutdown, old anger, old control, old manipulation. You thought God had brought you past it, and in one hard moment, there it is again, standing in the doorway like it never left. And that's why, and that's what makes this chapter feel so personal. It tells the truth about spiritual growth. Growth is real. But in unhealed fear, it still knows how to ambush people. Then Abimelech takes Sarah. God comes to him in a dream, and now the center of gravity in the whole chapter. This is the center of gravity in the whole chapter. It becomes clear. The story doesn't hold together because Abraham handles everything well. He didn't. The story holds together because God guards what God has promised. And that's some I see in comments saying, and you can disagree. I just want, what I don't like is people to be ignorant to each other in there and for profanity. And nothing crude. You can disagree. However, I see some in there that there's unbelief, and I understand that. I would encourage you to look at this story. You've been told your whole life that the Bible is some sort of sanitized thing. It's not. This is a great example. Guy failed miserably. Multiple times. Multiple times. And he came back, and God was trustworthy. You can trust him too. You see, the story holds together because God guards what God has promised. That's reality. That's the relief in this text. That's the oxygen in this chapter. The covenant isn't hanging by some thin thread of Abraham's perfect performance. No. The covenant is being upheld by the faithfulness of God. And that matters more than a lot of people realize, because if your life with God finally rests on your flawless consistency, you'll live in one of two places. Pride when you think you're doing well, and despair when you aren't. But covenant hope isn't rooted in the character of God. God protects his promise. God preserves his purpose. God doesn't excuse Abraham's fear. But neither does Abraham's fear get the authority to cancel what God has sworn. Look, that's good news for every single person. Every single person who is listening right now, who's painfully aware of their own cracks. And I'm painfully aware of mine. I've learned the hard way. Abimelech protests his innocence. The text takes this seriously. This is one of the places where the Bible shows just how morally precise God is. God knows what Abimelech knew. God knows what he intended. God knows what he had not yet done. God knows the difference between deception received and rebellion chosen. And that should steady some of you. God isn't morally sloppy. He's not confused. He's not careless with judgment. He knows exactly where the guilt lies. And he says something astonishing. I kept you from sinning against me. What a line. I kept you from sinning against me. What a mercy. Not just forgiveness after the fact. Restraint before the fact. How many times has God protected you from becoming worse than you were about to become? How many roads did he close before you called frustrating? You called those roads frustrating, but he closed them and you're like, "Argh, why?" How many plans did he interrupt that you called inconvenient? It would have been so much easier. How many plans did he interrupt that we said, this would be better if you'd just do this? How many exposures felt humiliating in the moment but kept you from going further than you understand? Some of the mercy of God in your life didn't feel soft. Oof. It felt like interruption. It felt like restraint. It felt like being blocked. But interruption can be mercy when God is keeping you from destroying more than you can see. And then God, then the chapter turns the knife. Abimelech rebukes Abraham. A pagan king has to confront the man of promise. That's humbling. That's deeply humbling. And it should be. Because when fear governs a believer, the witness gets destroyed. It gets distorted. The watching world sees contradiction. Well, the watching world is looking for contradiction. And that's why they hear what they hear. That's why they see what they see. The watching world, it hears trust in God with one ear and self-protective compromise with the other. Abraham tells a half-truth. Yes, Sarah is related to him in a limited sense. But a half-truth weaponized to mislead is still a lie. And that needs to be said out loud in this generation, where this generation has become very skilled at technical honesty and moral crookedness. People do this all the time. We do it all the time. Nuance. We hide behind precision while using the truth deceptively. We say, well, I didn't actually lie. It wasn't a lie. But we absolutely intended to mislead. The Bible won't let us hide behind that fig leaf. Half-truths used to manipulate are still lies. And that's not just Abraham's issue, that's ours. How many people are trying to look truthful while managing perception? How many are massaging facts, shading language, or omitting reality just enough to protect themselves? That's not integrity, that's fear with a better vocabulary. Now, can I just say, and I want you to know this, look, I'm not coming at you like a person who thinks he's perfect. I am so far from perfect. I have lived a kinetic, crazy life. I've done some bad things. We can make excuses all we want, but the fact of the matter of it is, I'm coming to you as a person with a very dented halo. But then I remember, here comes one of the most stunning lines in the entire chapter. God calls Abraham a prophet, and that lands with force precisely because Abraham isn't at his best here. He's not at his best, and yet God calls him a prophet. He's using someone that's flawed. That's good news for me. That's good news for you. Abraham is fearful. Abraham is compromised. Abraham is exposed, and yet the calling is still named. That's not permission for sin. No, don't get it twisted. It's a testimony to the faithfulness of God. Failure has consequences. Failure damages witness. Failure wounds people around us, but for the person who belongs to God, failure doesn't get the final word over calling. It doesn't get the last word over calling. God calls you. He means business. And all of my failures, all of my hurts, habits, and hang-ups, oh, God's working on them. You know, I'm reminded that God whispers to us in our pleasures, and He shouts to us in our pain. Some real people need to hear that today. You don't need a softer view of sin. You need a deeper view of grace, and God is able to confront what fear distorted without erasing the purpose that He's placed on your life. So don't confuse exposure with abandonment. Sometimes exposure is the first mercy on the road to restoration. Oh, say that again. Sometimes exposure is the first mercy on the road to restoration. And then Abraham prays. By the way, Joe, you should come to breakfast this morning. I know, completely unrelated. Joe's my buddy. He lives near me, and a bunch of my friends are there. Tammy and, wow, Michelle Davis, Guitar Princess. She is unbelief, she says. Well, God bless you. I'm praying for you then. It says Guitar Princess. You must be a guitar player. Man, oh man, I love good guitar players. Joe Bonamassa is my favorite. David Gilmour, Joe Bonamassa. Two totally different types of guitar players, but whatever. If you know, you know. So, here's the thing. I just said, sometimes exposure, amen, trust and obey, for there's no other way. It's all about grace. Sometimes exposure is the first mercy on the road to restoration. And then Abraham prays. And then healing comes. Abimelech's house is restored. That matters. Because the chapter doesn't end in naked shame. It ends in mercy after confrontation. And that sequence matters. God confronts. God protects. God humbles, and God restores. A lot of people need all four. Some only want restoration without truth. Others live in shame and never receive restoration after truth. But God is wiser than both of those extremes. He doesn't skip the confrontation. He doesn't abandon the promise. He doesn't avoid the humbling. He does not withhold the restoration. And that's the rhythm of covenant mercy. So, what does Genesis 20 mean for people living right now? It means old fear scripts are real. It means pressure reveals what still has power over you. It means maturity isn't pretending you have no weaknesses. Maturity is learning to recognize the places fear still lies to you. It means some things you've called wisdom were actually self-protected unbelief dressed up for church. It means God's faithfulness is the ground under your feet, not your spotless record. And it means when God exposes a repeating pattern, He's not trying to destroy you. He's trying to stop fear from writing the rest of your story. This world is full of anxious people building identities out of self-protection. The followers of the way, we are called to something deeper. Not recklessness, not denial, trust. Covenant-rooted, reality-facing, God-fearing, soul-steadying trust. By the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. There are many great resources, if I say so myself, at truewordfaithforlife.com. truewordfaithforlife.com. The only thing there that costs you anything if you want it is my book, True Word, Faith for Life. Yes, I did take that photograph. That was a cold, cold day. I was with my friends Jerry and Myra, lifelong friends. Adore them, miss them. Anyway, I used to be a photographer. So, more resources at truewordfaithforlife.com. And my book is there. It's there to help you live with clarity, courage, and covenant depth in a world that keeps training people to live scared. It's going to make you laugh, by the way. And that book also is going to make you cry some. And some of it is hard to read, and some of it will be a massive, massive relief. You buy it if you want. You don't have to. We use whatever profit we get, which we're not there yet, to help offset the costs of doing this. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I like that. Good morning, family. We are the family of God. So I have for you today a challenge and a choice. Name the pattern. Stop baptizing the thing you keep repeating. Stop calling fear wisdom. Stop dressing old compromise up like maturity just because it learned how to speak in a calmer voice, in a calmer tone. Bring the pattern into light, tell the truth about it, and choose. Will you keep letting the same old survival script write your reactions, or will you trust the God who is faithful enough to guard His covenant and loving enough to expose your fear? My friends, prayer is not asking for an easy journey. It's asking for a strong back. And if I may say, if you've never placed your faith in Him, pray now, not later, now. Father, I know I've done wrong things, and I need your mercy. I believe Jesus died for me, was buried, and rose again. Today, I turn from my sin and I place my trust in Him as my Lord and my King. Forgive me, make me new, and fill me with your Spirit. From this day forward, I want to follow you in Jesus' name. Amen. Oh, it's the whole reason I do this. If you prayed that prayer today, reach out to me. Seriously, reach out to me through truewordfaithforlife.com/contact. I would be honored to walk with you in your next steps. You aren't alone. All you need to do is ask. By the way, if this message resonated with you, if it touched your heart, share it. It's free. Think of one person, not a million, one. Somebody who needs hope and truth in this crazy world, and send it to them today. God is faithful when old fear resurfaces. God is truthful compromise gets exposed. God is merciful when failure humbles the heart. So don't run from his correction. Let it bring you back to trust. Until this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we wrap up this whole week and we get you ready for next week. Until then, Shalom B'Shem Yeshua. Shalom Alaikum.